Hey guys, Juan here from Impaktech USA, and today I want to show you inside Powder Solutions out here in Moreno Valley. They're one of our powder coaters. We use one of many different powder coaters to be able to powder coat all the products that we're shipping out. But today I really just wanted to explain why it takes such a long time for your orders to get done. A lot of people don't really know the difference between powder coating and paint or anodizing, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown. So this right here is a Kawasaki ZX-XR crash cage, and this is in raw. Raw essentially means there's not going to be anything on it. It's going to be bare metal and it's going to be ready to paint. When you order raw from our website, it's not designed to go on the bike. If you put it on the bike right away with raw, be aware that rust is going to occur just because of the elements. So now the first step we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and sandblast this cage. Sandblasting, it means we're going to get rid of any imperfection, any oil, any sort of debris that's on there. It's getting ready for powder coating. So we go ahead and get it sandblasted. Once we get sandblasted, the cages turn into like this very matte, like gray finish. That's how we know when they're ready. Once they're ready, they get hung onto this cart. If you were to get something as simple as gloss black, that's only one layer of powder. But when you start getting into the candy colors that we offer, like fluorescent yellow, Yamaha blue, all these colors, some of those are 2 stages. So those take up a little bit more time, which is why it costs more. Once it gets sprayed on the actual booth itself, they'll let it cure for a bit, and then it'll go inside of this oven. Once it's in the actual oven, the oven and the heat gets set to a particular temperature depending on what color it's for, and the oven is going to go ahead and bring that color out. You take them out of the oven, you let them cool off for a bit because they're very hot when they come out, and then it's done. That's the entire process. Now, when you go to a powder coating shop, any powder coating shop in the country, and if you tell them, hey, I want to powder coat 2 cages, right? The left side, the right side, and the crossbar, which is what consists of a crash cage kit, they're gonna quote you anywhere from $200 all the way to $500 or even more, depending on the color that you actually pick. And the reason being is because that entire prep process has to be done for only one part, right? So the way that we're able to charge $45 for gloss black or $100 for any other color is because we're doing them in batches of 100, 200, 300, hundreds of cages at a time, to where we're doing them in mass production. When you do them in mass production, you're able to get a little bit of a discount, which we share to you guys. We make zero money on powder coating. We don't make anything. We do it just because we know that if we were buying this product, we'd want it in some badass colors that are able to match our bike and whatnot. Now, the thing is, powder coating isn't like a paint-like finish. It's not like a car that just left the dealership that got bondoed, that made sure all the surfaces were flat, that you did a base coat, then you did a color, then you did clear coat, then you buff it out, you wet sand it. You can fix any imperfections in a normal car paint job. Industrial powder coating is not like that. Industrial powder coating is not meant to look like a car finish. You might have a little chip here, you're gonna have a little imperfection on where the actual crash cage is hanging from the hook, because it needs to have the hook there in order to be grounded to the actual shelf that goes into the oven. So it's not gonna be perfect. A lot of people think like, oh my God, I want my cage to be absolutely perfect. And that's just not the case. We do it the best we can to make sure that the cage, it meets our quality controls. And 99% of cages are gonna leave with no imperfections, but there is gonna be a couple where you have a little imperfection. If it doesn't meet our standards, we'll go ahead and strip it and re-powder coat it again. That's pretty much the process. If you go to the website and you order raw, just know that you are gonna have to go ahead and get it painted yourself, but that is the fastest way to get an order from us. If you go with raw, we can get it shipped out anywhere from a day to a week. We can make anything in our manufacturing facility, but if you wanna get it painted, then you really do have to wait. We offer 12 different colors on our website, so there's always gonna be a different rotation of color. If we just did flat black yesterday and you order flat black tomorrow, now you gotta wait for all that color to make a full circle around. So head over to the website, get your colors, and hopefully we were able to explain a little bit more about the powder coating process for you guys.
So powder coating really is what the name has. This particular case, we're doing flat black. So there's base coats, it's just a one single coat. Then there is dual coats, which is more candies, illusion colors, things like that. Then we have triple stage when you want to add something on top of those, which would be extra gloss, sparkle to it, different coatings. All using the same gun, all using the same style of process. As opposed to wet paint, we call them wet paints. That is more along the lines of you pre-mix the paint and the material that's already pre-prepped. Then you bring it in and you start shooting it. There's more leeway to painting wet paint than there is on powder coat. From afar, you see everything looks similar. Everything's already been sandblasted. But what you don't see typically, and what the customer really doesn't see, is where the weld marks are. That's a different introduction of materials. It's one of those things where you have to play with the electricity, you got to play with the air, and you got to play with the powder. All those three things have to come into combination to be able to make this work. Now, without any one of those three, you don't get the adherence and you don't get the uniformity of what you want in a part. The inconsistencies come with weld splatter would be one of the things that you would see that a lot of the post processes have to take away before we do a finished product. So now given a finished product would be no imperfections or as little imperfections as possible, meaning now we're dealing with welds, we're dealing with materials of different thicknesses, we're dealing with a lot of stuff that generally the consumer doesn't really care much about outside of the look. But these are the things that are kind of a challenge when it comes to powder coating. So the way I liken that would be something like when you go to a donut shop and you get a dozen donuts. If you get a dozen donuts, generally it's a little bit cheaper than when you buy one donut. If we were to do just a set, just one set, it would be basically these three items here. And in these three items here, we're still utilizing the entire rack. Now, Impaktech sends over several cages, several pieces, several things to include in the same rack that we just did 3 parts on. So that generates a lower number simply because you can produce more with the same amount of rack. Yeah, absolutely. So something like that would be now a one-off special deal. So for example, if we have a whole kit and it's one of those big $30,000 projects that we're working on, now we are introducing custom colors. It's meant just for that particular product in the amount that'll just do it for that one special product. So now with that, it'll determine how many racks we need. Let's just say, for example, it's just one rack. One rack still means that we have to do special processes for that one, take care of certain different things. Generally, when it's a sparkle green, something like that, it's maybe a 3-stage process there. So we have to go basically do the job 3 different times and make sure that every step gets done completely before we move on to the next step. Otherwise, we could do 2 steps, and on the 3rd step, we can mess the entire thing up, and then we go starting over again.
So hopefully this video helps you guys to the best of your ability. As you can see, the crash cage starts by just miscellaneous scrap. You know, it takes a multi-million-dollar company to be able to build something like this. CNC machines, benders, plasma cutters, water jets, every high machinery you can think. And when it gets painted, you also need all of this equipment to be able to deliver something that's going to be the final product.